In today's lesson, we're going to take a look at exponential functions with a base e. So before we move on to the actual lesson, there's a great resource here, this website, if you want to check that out for any additional information on this lesson. So first, let's take a look at the definition of e. So if you're familiar with compound interest, which we're actually going to get into later in this lesson, this formula may look familiar to you. So this is our compound interest formula. What this says is our principal is 1, meaning the initial amount that we invest. The rate would be in the numerator, so this says if a rate is 100%. N is the number of times each year that your interest is compounded. So what E is the limiting value of this function. What that means is as you put in an N value that's really large, it will approach this number, about 2.718. So E is also an irrational number, and it's a symbol, like pi, that represents a number. So when you see the letter E, it's actually a number, and it represents something that's about 2.718. So the first thing we're going to do is graph our function, base E, and this will look just like an exponential. It'll be almost like the exponential base 2, because it's 2.17 is about 2. So we're going to start with all of the information that we already know for all of our exponential functions, starting with domain. This is an exponential, it's just got a different value for its base, so the domain is still all real numbers. Range, because it is not shifted, it has no translations, the horizontal asymptote will be y equals 0, just like our other exponential functions, so this range will be y is greater than 0. The x-intercept, because the x-axis is an asymptote, there is no x-intercept. The y-intercept, if you substitute 0 for x, just like any other base, any base to the 0 power is 1. So we substituted 0 for x, and we got 1 for y. Asymptote, as I mentioned, is the x-axis, or the equation y equals 0. And I have a t-chart filled out for us. You can punch these numbers into your calculator if you want to evaluate, or double check that you can evaluate the e function. You actually should be able to find an e button on your calculator. So you should, again, get those approximate values. So finally, we are going to plot these on our graph. And again, we're going to have to just approximate where these points go, because all of our y values are decimals. So when we graph this, again, it looks very similar to that exponential base 2.